China is a major strategic focus of the United States, and U.S. Army Futures Command is exploring land vehicles to traverse the massive country. The unit's working on programs such as the Armored Multi-Purpose Combat Vehicle, Mobile Projected Firepower, and the Optionally Manned Fighting Vehicle, which would replace the Bradley. Those vehicles may even be able to launch their own smaller unmanned aerial and ground vehicles. As part of the Association of the United States Army Global Force Next event, ground warfare reporter Jen Judson spoke to the Army officer leading the charge.
All right, General Coffman, thanks so much for taking the time to join us on Defense News to talk a little bit about what you're doing with Next Generation Combat Vehicle now. You've recently come out and talked a lot about the pacing threat of China and how that's influencing what you are doing in your portfolio. What is under development in your portfolio that's suited for conflict against Chinese in that region or elsewhere? And is there any direction you're headed in development that needs tweaking in order to ensure the Army is able to bring overmatch in conflict there?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Thanks, Jen. And look, the Pacific is just fascinating. And, everyone thinks that it's the ocean, but no, the Pacific region, the Indo-PACOM region, has a ton of land. And should we go to conflict there, we're going to be fighting on the land. And if you're going to fight on the land, what do you need? You need tanks. You need armored vehicles because they can be decisive, they can clear, they can hold, and they can take terrain. So I think all of the programs that we're working on are directly applicable against our pacing threat, which is China. What we have to do is make sure that what we're developing is worldwide deployable, and with the knowledge we have about the Chinese armored forces and fighting forces, that we are modernizing to overmatch against them. And we have to weigh that against deployability, survivability, lethality. And so you can envision a robot, a AMP-V, an MPF, or our number one priority, OMFV, in Asia, somewhere in the 27 million square kilometers, I said million square kilometers of land where half the population of the world lives. I can absolutely see it all.
I want to switch gears just a little bit about some of other efforts that you have in your portfolio. We got a good rundown of the light and medium robotic combat vehicles and where those are in development and evaluation. And you just wrapped up in 2020 a big evaluation of the heavy RCVs at Fort Carson using M113 surrogates. So we didn't hear a lot yesterday about the RCV heavy. Why is RCV heavy development going to be further behind the other two RCV development efforts? And is this capability potentially too similar to things like the optionally manned fighting vehicle or an optionally manned tank even?
So it comes down to cost and being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. The lights and mediums are far less expensive. We can learn all the lessons that we need to learn about user interface, radio tethers that allow you to go certain distances, the autonomy package, the kernel, the software kernel that goes into these vehicles that is government developed. So once we have done that, we're using lights and mediums to really work through that, how we'll fight it. And then it's a material solution for the heavies on the backside. But to spend all that money on a heavy surrogate and then have to go back and then redo that and recompete it, it just didn't make fiscal sense.
After seeing them under evaluation or seeing how you might use them in the future through the evaluation that you had at Fort Carson and obviously some other evaluations that you've had, does the Army still see this as a very important capability to have in the future, or is it potentially proving to be something that may be too cumbersome or just not necessary?
The feedback has really been positive. Look, we went out to Fort Carson, Colorado, as you know. We had the mighty 4th Infantry Division soldiers out controlling them. They were 113s that we turned into robots, and to get them in the hands of soldiers, do some quick learning. Look, I've been around 113s my whole career. Okay, they are a bit underwhelming. the 4 lights and the 4 mediums that we did build, okay, purpose-built robots are really awesome. The light goes something like 43 miles an hour. Okay, this is like a robot going 43 miles an hour across broken terrain is awesome. And then when you start talking about the different payloads of weapons and sensors and smoke generation, etc., really exciting stuff. And then, I mean, if you look at the medium, I mean, this thing has a UAV on the top and a UGV that comes out of it. So it's a robot that hatches robots. You got the ground and the air coming off of this thing, and these are absolutely going to change the way that we gain contact with the enemy. So in the Army, we want to gain contact with the smallest element possible, and that allows us to maintain decision space. Well, if you have a robot out there making contact with the enemy first, and if it's a medium and it's got a 30 millimeter chain gun on it so that it can shoot, move, and communicate and deal destruction on anything that gets in its way, that's a pretty doggone good option for a combat leader, if you ask me.
Thank you again for taking the time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Take care.
Thanks, Jen. And now for some business news. 2 Saudi Arabian manufacturers have started co-producing a Turkish-made medium-altitude long-endurance drone. Intra Defense Technologies, an advanced electronics company, will produce the Carryall SU under license from Vestel Savumna. Vestel Savumna did not respond to a request for comment, but a company official told Defense News on the condition of anonymity that AEC will provide electronics parts and Vestel will supply essential critical components of the aircraft. Turkish defense analyst Anil Sahin told Defense News that the co-production program involves building a batch of 40 Carryall SU aircraft between 2021 and 2025. The Turkish drone will be reflagged as Habub in Saudi Arabia. When unloaded, the Carryall SU can fly up to 20 hours at an altitude of 18,000 feet or for 8 hours with a 120 kilogram payload. It can fly at a speed of 60 to 80 knots at a range of up to 150 kilometers. The U.S. Navy sealed the deal this month on a 10th ship in its latest iteration of the Virginia-class attack submarine, issuing a $2.4 billion adjustment on a contract initially awarded in December 2019. The original contract was for 9 boats with an option for a 10th, which brings the total cost of the contract with prime contractor General Dynamics Electric Boat to $24.1 billion. Huntington Ingalls Industries Newport News Shipyard is the partner yard in the program. The modern Virginia-class subs coming off the line can hold 12 Tomahawk missiles and a launcher on the bow and are expected to host hypersonic missiles when that technology is available. And that's it for industry news this week. When we come back, personal finance expert Jeanette Mack teaches service members the basic rules of budgeting.